story begins in Seoul, South Korea. At this moment, the city has placed its hopes on a single man. Amidst a chaotic battlefield covered in dust and debris, Jang Xiwen, the guild master of Yunga, struggles to catch his breath. As the dust gradually settles, a man dressed entirely in black emerges before Xiwen's weary figure. The crowd that had gathered to witness the event wears horrified expressions, unable to grasp the tragic fate of the young Ha guild. The man in black takes a combat stance, locking eyes with Xiwen. At last, they are the only ones left. This formidable figure, known as Kangho, has long been recognized as the world's most feared public enemy. Xiwen's body trembles as he slowly pushes himself to his feet. He directs his anger at Kangho, blaming him for initiating senseless battles that have caused widespread suffering. Overcome with rage, Xiwen releases his power, his voice echoing through the battlefield as he declares, "It's because of evil like you." Kangho, unfazed, responds with a smirk. "What a joke," he mocks. "Do you truly see yourself as a messenger of justice?" The words catch Xiwen off guard. Clenching his teeth in frustration, he glares at Kangho. His hands begin to glow with a crimson light, signaling the awakening of his power. Sparks flicker as a lightning-like aura envelops one side of his body. Determined, he yells, "I fight for the people." His anger intensifies as he accuses Kangho of meddling in affairs that do not concern him. The crowd, though visibly distressed, watches in anticipation. "What are you if not evil?" Xiwen demands. His overwhelming presence sends fear rippling through the onlookers, even causing a child to cry. Then a sudden shift occurs. The crowd erupts into cheers, their voices growing louder in support of Xiwen. Their chants of encouragement, however, do not change the fierce determination in his eyes. Another brilliant red light takes shape in his hand. He vows that as long as the people stand behind him, he will not fall. With all his power, he unleashes an explosive attack directed straight at Kangho. Kangho's eyes widen in surprise, his body frozen in place. The impact of the attack triggers a massive explosion, filling the air with smoke and debris. Even the spectators are forced to retreat to avoid the blast. As the dust settles, Xiwen approaches the kneeling figure of Kangho, who is now gravely wounded. The crowd roars in triumph, their faces lit with relief and joy. Some voice their unwavering faith in Xiwen, while others call for him to end the battle once and for all. The chants grow deafening, "Kill him, kill him." Xiwen looks down at Kangho, stating the obvious, no one wants him to live. Once more, his power surges, this time manifesting as a pulsing purple light. Kangho remains motionless, his body trembling from the sheer force radiating from Xiwen. "This is your end," Xiwen declares. At point-blank range, he releases his power. The devastating blast tears through one side of Kangho's body. Blood spills onto the battlefield as Kangho coughs violently, his body crashing to the ground. As his vision fades, the last thing he sees is Xiwen standing tall, victorious. Afterwards, Xiwen leaped into the air, addressing the crowd with enthusiasm. He announced that all their efforts had finally paid off and the time had come for true freedom to descend upon their land. The people looked at him with a mixture of relief and anticipation. With an elated expression, Xiwen gazed up at the crimson sky. Dark red clouds gathered above him, casting an eerie glow, and a faint red light connected his body to the swirling clouds. The entire scene was bathed in an ominous red hue. Suddenly, a massive hand emerged from the sky. The crowd gasped in horror as chaos erupted. Panic spread as people scrambled to escape, screaming for their lives. Yet Xiwen stood firm, smiling as though he had foreseen this moment. The monstrous hand began seizing people one by one, triggering widespread terror. Amidst the chaos, Xiwen laughed and declared that the arrival of the Demon King marked the beginning of true peace. Kangho, struggling to regain his composure, retorted that this was not peace, it was tyranny. His words caught Xiwen off guard. With a shocked expression, Xiwen questioned how Kangho was still alive. He urged Kangho to open his eyes and witness the new world he had created. In an instant, everything was consumed by darkness. A faint speck of light flickered within the void, resembling an image on a digital screen. A message appeared, "Thank you for all the love you have shown for the story of a villain turned savior." In another part of the world, a pair of hands typed rapidly on a keyboard. The person behind them mused about how the reader's expectations must have been completely shattered. The so-called greatest hero, Xiwen, had been nothing more than a pawn of the Demon King. He and his comrades, known as the 13 Stars, were powerful entities of long-standing evil. But as the writer reflected, fiction was merely a mirror reflecting reality. At that moment, the author found himself attending a funeral. He placed a flower in front of the casket of a student who had passed away. Xiwen's character had been inspired by someone from real life, someone who had witnessed authority capable of covering up school violence and manipulating the perception of good and evil. The author had woven these harsh truths into his novel. Later, he sat at his computer, reading the audience's reactions. Many were dissatisfied with the ending. The readers lamented that evil had triumphed simply because the people had chosen to support the wrong figure. Frustration stirred within the author. He sighed, knowing there was nothing he could do to change their perception. Closing the browser, he slumped onto his bed. The state of his room reflected the toll this story had taken on him. He recalled a comment complaining about the open-ended conclusion. Another reader criticized him personally, suggesting he was arrogant in real life. The words lingered in his mind, unsettling him. He covered his eyes with his arm, trying to block them out. Another comment accused him of destroying the reader's world. The weight of their disappointment pressed down on him. He clenched his teeth, suppressing his emotions. This was never his intention, yet here he was, trapped by his own creation. Unable to rewrite the story, he decided to surrender to sleep, hoping for momentary escape. The author slowly stirred from his deep slumber, his senses gradually awakening. A cacophony of noise surrounded him, making him wonder why everything was so loud. As he opened his eyes, he saw people in uniforms working tirelessly, mining the ground. He realized that he too was wearing the same blue overalls and was lying on a cold stone floor. Suddenly, a man shouted angrily. His voice echoed through the air as he berated another individual crouched on the ground, calling him worthless. Without hesitation, he kicked the poor guy repeatedly, cursing him for daring to disrespect Eclipse's grace. Hearing that name, Eclipse, triggered something in the author's mind. It sounded oddly familiar. As the helpless man endured the kicks, the author's thoughts drifted to a memory. He recalled a student he once knew, someone who had been in the same position before. To his shock, the student bore a striking resemblance to the man now being beaten in front of him. Frustration bubbled inside the author. Why was this person showing up in his dream? The aggressor then grabbed the crouching man by the collar, ready to land another punch. His curses grew louder, his anger intensifying. Just as his fist was about to strike, the entire scene froze and all eyes turned toward them. A different man stepped forward, this time facing the author. Recognizing him instantly, the man wasted no time throwing punches at him. Blow after blow landed as he mocked the author, calling him the one who couldn't even last a second. Confusion clouded the author's mind. Why did his body ache so much if this was just a dream? Before the assault could continue, another individual intervened. He commanded the attacker to stop, reminding him that the author still had a long way to go to meet his quota. Doubt crept into the author's mind. Could this really be a dream? Everything felt far too real. The attacker spat on the ground near him before walking away, but not without a final threat. One day, he would beat him up again. As soon as the tension eased, the beaten-up man rushed to the author's side, concern evident in his eyes. He asked if he was all right and called him by a name, Kangho. The author's mind raced. Why was he being called Kangho? He looked at his hands, his breath quickening. He needed confirmation. Scrambling toward a body of water, he let his hands drop to the ground near its surface. A soft blue light enveloped his body. The glow intensified as though the energy was being drawn into him. Recognition dawned upon him. This was mana, pure and powerful. It grew stronger, responding to him as if it were a part of him. The realization hit him like a thunderbolt. He possessed the ability to absorb mana at will. He had what was known as innate mana hypersensitivity, and he was well aware of its significance. With a growing sense of urgency, he peered into the water's reflection. His suspicions were confirmed. He had become Shin Kangho. Laughter escaped his lips, disbelief washing over him. Of all people, he had become Kangho. His gaze returned to the concerned man before him. If this person was still alive, then the timeline must have been 5 years before the final events. A bitter thought crossed his mind. If he had taken over Siwon's body instead, he could have been revered as a hero. But at this rate, the story would inevitably lead to the Demon King's arrival, ensuring only the followers' survival. He knew one thing for certain: if he did not change the course of events, he would meet a disgraceful end. Determination fueled his next action. He stood up, holding onto one key piece of good news: his knowledge of how to escape this place. At that moment, a blue gem tumbled to the ground. He bent down and picked it up, his mind racing. If he had taken over Kangho's body, then the real Kangho's past and experiences must now be his as well. Summoning his status window, he examined the displayed character information. Shin Kangho Assassin, level 10. However, just as he retrieved the gem, his body weakened and he collapsed to his knees. A curse slipped from his lips. His stamina was too low. In his mind, he regretted ever giving Kangho such a debilitating weakness like innate mana hypersensitivity just because he was an anti-hero. Kangho knew there was one way to help himself. Using the gem, he quickly drew a star symbol on the ground. Just as he finished, his friend ran towards him, concern evident on his face, asking if he was all right. Without hesitation, Kangho erased the drawing with his foot and responded casually, claiming it was nothing. His friend hesitated before offering to suggest a break for them. Kangho let out a dry laugh, remarking that if the people in charge cared about their well-being, they wouldn't have forced them into this place to begin with. This was no ordinary worksite. It was a detention center run by Eclipse, a ruthless criminal organization. Rookie hunters who could wield mana were captured and exploited, forced into backbreaking labor to mine mana stones like slaves. Kangho reassured his friend, telling him to focus on mining and not to worry about him. His friend hesitated again, starting to ask, "Are you Before he could finish, Kangho completed the sentence for him, thinking of escaping. He quickly dismissed the topic, warning his friend to concentrate on work unless he wanted to be beaten by the guards. He also urged him not to do anything reckless. As the work continued, Kangho knew he had done what he could by warning his friend. That man was a character he had created as a reference to a student he once knew. For now, he had to remain patient. Changing anything in the story too soon could jeopardize his own plans for escape. The mine bustled with exhausted workers. Kangho pushed a cart full of gems, his mind occupied with his escape plans. Suddenly, a painful groan caught his attention. He turned to see his friend being beaten by a guard. The guard's voice rang out across the mine, announcing that while his attention had been focused on the newcomers, some fool had attempted to escape. Without hesitation, the guard drew his blade and commanded the other workers to watch closely. He accused the fallen man of taking responsibility for his reckless actions. Then, without mercy, the guard drove the blade into the man's back. Gasps rippled through the workers, including Kangho, but the guard wasn't finished. He stabbed the man again and again, his blade slicing through flesh as painful groans filled the air. Blood splattered onto the onlookers, prompting many to avert their gazes. But Kangho did not look away. He continued watching as his friend's body convulsed, his pained sounds gradually fading until silence fell. His body had finally reached its limit. Kangho stood before the lifeless corpse, his expression unreadable. In his mind, he reminded himself that he had warned him not to act recklessly, yet despite that, his friend had met his end. The guard sneered at Kangho, taunting him. He suggested that Kangho should act up just as he had in the past, challenging him since there was no one left to stop him. He made it clear that he could kill him too, without hesitation. Kangho's response was cold and detached. He stated that he couldn't care less about the man's death. His words seemed to catch the guard off guard. Changing the subject, Kangho made a simple request to be allowed to go to the toilet. The guard scoffed, assuming Kangho had wet himself in fear. Laughing cruelly, he agreed, his mocking laughter echoing through the dimly lit mine. Kangho remained silent, his thoughts hidden behind a mask of indifference. The guard ordered Kangho to follow him. When they arrived at the restroom, he sternly warned that he had only 1 minute, emphasizing that any delay would turn the place into his grave. Stepping inside, Kangho took in the grim sight of several corpses scattered across the floor. He moved forward, knowing exactly what he was searching for. Outside, the guard counted down the seconds. Kangho, focused, quickly drew on the ground using the blood he found. With only 18 seconds remaining, he completed the symbol, a circle with a star in the center. Instantly, the drawing began to glow. Speaking to the glowing circle, Kangho acknowledged the presence watching him. He spoke directly, stating that he knew this being had a fascination with tragedies, trials, and despair. A loud knock interrupted him. The guard announced he had only 10 seconds left. Undeterred, Kangho continued, questioning if the entity was curious how someone of his level could summon it. He was well aware of the entity's nature. Just as in the novel, if he hesitated even a day longer, the entity would warn him that hope for the world would slip further away. He also knew that summoning it meant becoming its entertainment. With a confident smirk, he declared himself the only one truly capable of wielding the power effectively. He awaited the arrival of the summoned being. Then a voice echoed. Dimension Looter had arrived, calling Kangho an insolent fool but acknowledging that he had managed to capture his attention. Amused, the entity granted Kangho the opportunity to borrow his power, daring him to prove himself. Kangho, brimming with confidence, assured him to simply watch. A screen appeared displaying Dimension Looter's details. At that moment, the restroom door burst open. The guard stormed in, yelling furiously, "Are you with me, bastard?" But all he saw was an empty room, thick with smoke. His eyes darted around in confusion before he spotted a shadow emerging through the haze. A new window popped up, detailing Kangho's status changes. All of his skills had now been upgraded to their maximum proficiency, including his sole ability, Short Distance Leap. Previously at level 1, it had now surged to its peak level. In an instant, Kangho surged forward, activating his teleportation skill. The guard blinked in shock. Kangho had vanished. He frantically searched the room, anger surging as he realized his target was gone. Little did he know, Kangho was already standing right behind him. In an instant, he stabs the rod in his throat, and before the guard could process everything, he was on the ground, unable to move. The entity praises Kang, calling him interesting, and informs him that the contract has been made. Kang exhales a deep breath, and with that he has avenged his friend. He swaps his clothes with the guard and put the knife in the sheath. With this, another notification pops up. informing about the weapon that has been registered. After dealing with the guard, he pours gasoline on the ground and lights it up using a lighter. The fire creates a chaos in the camp, and everyone scatters around to put it out. Another guard shouts and tells everyone to follow the manual. And as for him, he is heading towards to the crematorium and enters the car. After sitting on his seat, he sees Kang, who was sitting behind them. He asks Kang if he is changing his shift, and Kang agrees with him, saying he had to swap because they got a runaway on their hand from the Zone 18. They believes him and starts the car. At the gate they get stopped, and the driver tells the soldiers on the checkpost their secret word. The guard signaled all clear and the fence was opened. Kangho, watching the barrier lift, thought to himself that he was finally getting past this dreadful place. The vehicle carried them forward through the dense forest. Inside, the driver casually struck up a conversation, assuming Kangho was exhausted from the chaos at Building 18. Kangho played along, agreeing and even remarking that it would be easier to simply kill the prisoners since they refused to listen. The driver laughed, agreeing wholeheartedly. He continued, degrading the inmates as nothing more than pathetic failures who only called themselves hunters. Kangho made a mental note of the way the driver dismissed the prisoners. The guard in the passenger seat turned to Kangho, making small talk. "How long have you been on duty in Building 18? Kangho remained cautious. "Since the day before yesterday," he replied. The guard narrowed his eyes. "So you've been working in Unit 9. Kangho nodded, affirming the claims. The guard smirked. "That's interesting because Unit 9 doesn't exist. If you were assigned there, then it must have been created just yesterday." Kangho's mind raced. He had been caught off guard. The vehicle pressed forward, navigating the dense forest path. Kangho's lips curled into a smile as he acknowledged the guard's remark. He tightened his grip around the blade in his hand and calmly responded that there was only one reason. Without hesitation, he struck, slicing the guard in the passenger seat from behind. A violent spray of blood filled the confined space of the vehicle. The driver, caught off guard, stared in horror as the gruesome scene unfolded. Kangho coldly declared that the true purpose of Unit 9 was to eliminate corrupt individuals like them. The driver reacted instantly, slamming his foot down on the brakes. The sudden halt sent Kangho lurching forward, momentarily throwing him off balance. The lifeless body of the passenger guard was flung through the shattered front windshield, landing motionless on the ground outside. The driver turned in fury, his hands now engulfed in flames. Without a moment's hesitation, he hurled a fireball at Kangho. However, Kangho swiftly dodged the incoming attack. A quick glance at the roof of the vehicle revealed a gaping hole where the flames had burned through, reducing it to charred remains. The driver, fueled by rage and betrayal, launched another assault. This time the flames rained down with even greater intensity, engulfing the inside of the vehicle in a fiery inferno. The driver sneered, convinced that Kangho was nothing more than ash, but in an instant something caught his eye, a reflection in the side mirror. Kangho had moved out of sight. Before the driver could react, a sharp blade pierced through the glass of the passenger window. Kangho wasted no time, dragging the blade across the driver's throat. The force of the attack shattered the window of the driver's seat as blood gushed from the fresh wound. The driver's eyes widened in horror, his hands clawing at his throat in a desperate attempt to stop the bleeding. Kangho withdrew his sword, watching as the man collapsed, emitting agonized, choking sounds before succumbing to his fate. A sudden sharp pain shot through Kangho's head, forcing him to wince. He wondered if it was the aftereffect of using too much mana. Before he could dwell on it, his eyes flickered to a source of light reflecting from behind. His gaze shifted to the side mirror, an approaching vehicle. He cursed under his breath, wondering if it was a patrol car. This unexpected complication was something he hadn't accounted for. He knew this would be his final obstacle before complete escape. Without hesitation, he leapt from the vehicle, sliding down the steep cliffside. The descent was rapid, his body skimming over rough terrain before finally landing safely below. Just as he steadied himself, a voice rang out from the darkness. "Impressive, killing wardens and escaping like that." Kangho's eyes locked onto a figure standing before him. The man carried an axe-like weapon over his shoulder and regarded Kangho with disdain. He referred to him as a low-level scum. Kangho's gaze quickly shifted to the red mark hovering above the man's head, a clear indication that he was a hunter under contract with a constellation. Keeping his expression unreadable, Kangho carefully analyzed his opponent. A status screen materialized before him, revealing the man's ability, a unique skill that allowed him to track mana. Kangho's grip on his weapon tightened as he braced himself for what was to come. Kangho quickly pieced together why the man had found him so easily. Instead of feeling fear, a grin spread across his face. This was an opportunity. The hunter across from him seemed puzzled by Kangho's reaction, unaware that Kangho could see not only the red mark above his head, but also the constellation he was contracted with. A quick glance at his status screen revealed something even more interesting, a third clause stating that by killing another hunter, he could loot their contracted constellation. His eyes flicked back to the hunter, whose smug expression remained intact, unaware that he was already marked for death. The system confirmed it. Kangho had the option to loot his target. Excitement coursed through Kangho. This was his first time using Dimension Loot, and he was eager to see it in action. But there was one issue: if the man had made a contract with a constellation, he had to be at least level 100. A direct confrontation would be reckless. Instead, he turned and ran, aiming to lure the man into a vulnerable position. The hunter scoffed at Kangho's cowardice, calling him nothing more than a low-level scum. With slow, deliberate steps, he activated his power, his eyes turning an eerie shade of blue. "Nothing escapes my sight," he muttered, scanning the area. He took his time, his confidence unwavering. When he spotted a trace of mana, he smirked. Kangho's movements were quick, but not quick enough to evade his sight. The man adjusted his vision, tracking the movement until he locked onto his target. Kangho crouched behind a tree. With a laugh, he hurled his axe-like weapon, cursing as it sliced cleanly through its mark. But as the tree splintered and fell, the hunter's eyes widened in shock. There was no body, no blood, only wood and bark crashing to the ground. Before he could react, a sharp pain exploded in his neck. Kangho had outmaneuvered him. The blade had pierced his throat in an instant, leaving no chance for retaliation. "Throwing your weapon away in battle, that's a rookie mistake," Kangho taunted. The hunter realized too late he had underestimated his opponent. The fight was over before it had even begun. Kangho drove his blade deeper, twisting it slightly as he delivered the final blow. Blood spilled in torrents as the man collapsed lifelessly to the ground. A status window immediately materialized before Kangho, confirming the kill and the successful looting of the man's contract. His newly acquired abilities, Travers, Teleportation, Mana Tracking, and Night Vision, were already at max level. He grinned in satisfaction, activating his Mana Tracking vision to scan for any remaining threats. The area was clear for now, but before he could celebrate, a sharp pain shot through his body. His breath hitched as his knees buckled beneath him. Tremors racked his frame, and a fresh bout of blood spilled from his lips. The price of overusing his mana had caught up with him. Gritting his teeth, he forced himself forward. Stumbling toward a nearby phone booth, he fumbled with the keypad, dialing a familiar number. His stamina was draining fast, he needed help, and he knew exactly who to call. Meanwhile, back in a distant building, a man reviewed the latest intelligence report. The so-called escape had killed a level 45 and a level 55 hunter, one of whom had been contracted with a constellation. Back at the phone booth, the call connected. "I'm in front of Dijian Station," Kangho rasped. "I need a favor." Back in the building, the man who had been tracking him smirked. "Interesting," he mused. "This is going to be a fun hunt." Inside a small home, Shin Kangho stirred, his wounds freshly treated. A woman named Han Xian sat beside him, her expression filled with concern. "You're lucky I even treated you after that sudden call," she said. He sighed in relief. "Still, thank you." Xian narrowed her eyes. "What happened to you?" Kangho didn't hesitate. "Eclipse kidnapped me." Her face darkened. "So you were dragged into a mana stone mine. Those bastards are infamous for kidnapping hunters." He nodded. "Mining mana stones is essential, and weak hunters like me, we're just prey for the stronger ones." She looked at him intently, searching for any sign of deception. "But despite that," he added, his tone softening slightly, "I trusted you. That's why I called you."